All right, welcome in, guys, to the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. This is your host, Steve Pintato, and with me, as always, is my main man, Jabron Curtis. What's going on today, Jibs?
It's going good, man. Just played a couple games of cornhole to scrape your fellow hosts in a couple games, and I'm feeling good. I'm ready to hit this podcast right, and I'm feeling pretty dandy today for a Thursday.
It's Wednesday, man.
Oh my God, I'm just thinking
Yeah,
about Thursday. I had Thursday on my mind so much.
yeah, we're outside of our norm here, guys. We're usually podcast on Thursdays, but today's a Wednesday because me and Jibs are going out of town for a couple of days, so we won't be able to podcast tomorrow. But have no fear, we got a great guest on today to make up for that Thursday miss. So, Bob Long, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining in with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Honored to be a part of the podcast and to meet you guys. And I know we're going to meet each other face to face here in a few months at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio. So excited about that. We were already just talking about flights and getting in there and doing some things. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we start talking about the expo real quick here, just let everyone know, kind of what you do in the industry and things you guys are, what you're working on right now.
Got it. So just to give everybody a little bit of a background who haven't heard of me before, again, Bob Lung's the name on Twitter at Bob_Lung. My thing, a couple things that I'm kind of known for. One is consistency, and fantasy football consistency is the topic. And I started writing articles, came up with my own kind of calculations back almost 20 years ago now, 2002. About 5 years ago, started writing my own annual fantasy football consistency guide, which has now been nominated for 4 straight years by the Fantasy Sports Writers of America for Best Fantasy Football Publication and won the actual award in 2018. It is out now. You can get that on Amazon.com if you like the hard copy. If you're a PDF kind of person, you can want to print your own pages and make your own notes. You can get that at Big Guy Fantasy Sports, which is my website, which has all the other consistency articles, consistency tools. You want to know how consistent your players are in your league and your scoring method, you can go there and check out the consistency report and put that information in and see over the last year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, the consistency of players in your own scoring method. So that's the consistency stuff. Some other things that I'm also involved with, I put together 3 years ago what's called the Kings Classic, which is a live fantasy football expert draft at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. This year it will be Saturday, August 14th. And in that, we bring in 28 of the best guys in the country and girls. Brad Evans, Mike Clay, Andy Behrens, Bob Harris, you name them. All the big boys are there. Jeff Radcliffe, Jeff Manns. And it's the best of the best trying to beat each other out for the title of, the ultimate basically expert in fantasy football. We've been doing that for about 3 years. The next day, then on August 15th, will be the expo, and we can talk about that next.
Who's the current champion?
So last year, Michael Fabiano won in the one league. We have basically I'll call it the A and B league. I mean, it really doesn't matter. They're all guys. I mean, Marcus Grant's in the B league, so it's really not B league. But Michael Fabiano, I think, won in the snake draft. So we do 2 drafts. We do an auction draft and a snake draft. So that way we can kind of make sure that, hey, I'm really good at auctions and I'm really good at this. So we have 2 full drafts that day. Sirius XM comes in. They do it live on XM Radio, Fantasy Sports Radio. Fabiano won I want to say he won the auction league, and Corey Parsons, I think, won the snake draft in the one division. The other one was, brain dead on the other one. Don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, so Trophy Smack sponsoring, going to get us new belts. So every time you win, you get a championship belt. So they're going to do that and help supply those. So it's a great time. So again, the whole big weekend coming up this year, August 14th to 15th, Canton, Ohio. All of that is happening 14th and on the Kings Classic at the Hall. And you can come live, watch it, tour the hall, all part of the package of getting ticket packages with the expo. You can come to the Hall of Fame, see that, check it out. Big party Saturday night, but we'll talk about the expo next. So I'll that's what I'm kind of into. That's my big three, I'll call it for now. Just kind of that's the three things I've been really focusing on for my 20 years in this fantasy world. I've been playing since 1985, so I've been playing for over 35 years. So most of the time I host, like you guys have not been born before I was playing.
No, unfortunately not.
5 years on me.
Yeah, we're close. We're not far off, but we're not there, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We're pushing 30. One of us is already 30, but we're pushing 30 here, so we'll get in there. But
all good.
Yeah, no, like I said, we had to bring Bob on. I know he's been involved in a lot of things here, and he's a great fantasy mind in the industry. So we had to make sure we got him on for an episode this coming off season here. So going over the Expo now, talk a little bit about kind of like what the Expo is, and why people should go to it.
So the Expo came really, as I said, I live in Canton, Ohio. I live 3 miles from the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I have pretty much all my life. Growing in there, being a part of Hall of Fame weekend and seeing it every year. So another thing that I do really that has nothing to do with fantasy, but it really is a true, honest fantasy, is I've been a enshrinee driver for the last 30 plus years. So every year I'm driving in one of the enshrinees who get inducted. This year it's John Lynch. I've done Kurt Warner. I had Brian Dawkins a couple years ago. John Madden, Al Davis. The list goes on and on. 30 years worth of driving, and I watch that event and I see that event and how that's grown into this massive weekend of parties and get-togethers and just everything about football. And as I've been kind of going through my career in fantasy football, I said, why can't we create the exact same feeling but for fantasy football? Bring everybody here. We've got the Hall of Fame, we've got the hotels, we've got everything. We're perfectly kind of settled here in the middle of the Midwest where, you can fly from New York and you can fly from Chicago or drive, or there's Philadelphia and Detroit and Buffalo and all, we're kind of in the middle. And so that was always been like my goal now that I've kind of gotten ingrained into this world. So like I said, I created the Kings Classic to kind of create the best draft at the Hall of Fame live thing. And then the ultimate goal was then to add to the next day to make a whole weekend out of this expo and this gathering for people to come and, and see face to face their favorite experts and, share knowledge and their expertise and, have seminars and get in breakout sessions and all that kind of cool stuff that you would expect. So when I put together the expo this year, which was the second year of doing it, we did it once in 2019, I wanted it to be a weekend package. I wanted it to be a trip. Don't just come in for the expo on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., but come for the weekend. Come Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. Come in Friday, we're going to have like a little get-together party just, down the street at a brewery. Saturday, you get, so with your packages, you get a ticket to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So you can come watch all of us guys draft live from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. SiriusXM will be there. And if you've never seen the Hall of Fame, never been a chance to get it, this will be the perfect time. Big party Saturday night. If you come for nothing else, come for the party. It's going to be amazing. The guys from Fantasy Affair are putting this on. Also during the day on Saturday is the guys from Sleeper Wire and Sleeper are putting together what's called the Draft Night Out. Now, it's not a night. We're doing it in the afternoon from like noon to 4. But again, at the local brewery, they're having like 6 or 7 different leagues for $30. You get into the league, you can win prizes. I think they're having food and drinks. They're having, I think, giveaways during the draft. So if you're not going to be at the Kings Classic or you don't want to go over to the hall, you can do that that Saturday afternoon. So go to draftnightout.com and you can sign up for one of the leagues there. Then, like I said, big party Saturday night. Sunday, then, of course, the expo from 10 to 4 in the Doubletree Hotel in downtown Canton, where most of us are staying. That runs like till 4 o'clock. And then the Dynasty Nerds are doing an after party as well. So might as well stay Sunday night. So now you've made a whole weekend out of it. So that's what it's about. And we've already pre-sold almost 150 tickets. Where 60% of the booths are sold out. It's at least 300-400 people are going to be there, and then that's really this week. And the ultimate goal is that the Hall of Fame is building around the hall what they call a Hall of Fame village. Now, I've never been to Cooperstown, but I have heard that Cooperstown is kind of built and it's set up in that way. They have the museum, and then they have this like village around it of shops and restaurants and bars and convention centers, and they have all this kind of stuff. Well, the Hall of Fame is doing the same thing. So we're hoping that 3, 4, 5 years from now, that this 200, 300, 400 person event is going to become 3,000, 4,000 people coming from out of town and big parties. And we're talking about, having a party where you can go out onto the field, and kick field goals, which, that's a great mix, alcohol and kicking field goals. So, I'm already talking to the vice president of events at the village about this long term. And so that's kind of the ultimate goal of all this. But for this year, just go to thefantasyfootballexpo.com and buy your ticket packages. Hotel rooms are going fast for the ones where the expo is being held. We already had to get a overflow hotel because of the demand has just been amazing. But so get your tickets quick, get your flights, your hotel, everything booked, because everything's kind of not selling out, but we're having to move around the city, which makes it kind of inconvenient for some of the folks. But everything's very close. Can's a pretty small town, so you're a 10-minute drive from anywhere. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Bob. That's honestly, like I said, when you guys first started announcing it this year, I'm thrilled. I want to go. I want to meet the people like we bring on our podcast and other podcasts we've been on. Just that face-to-face communication is so different than just talking over the mic and everything like that. Actually seeing that person and say, hey, like, what's up? Like, we've connected, we've talked on Twitter, social media, Instagram, and all those kind of things. Yeah, it's nice to actually have that connection. We can all meet in one spot and talk fantasy that we really love. So
right.
Thanks for putting that together, man.
It's just a dream come true for me. Like I said, when you live here and you just see the potential to do something like this, you got to at least try. I said, look, if I put this all together, nobody shows up, well, I at least tried. But I'm so excited that the community loves the idea. The enthusiasm has been overwhelming. Oh my gosh, I just couldn't believe how quickly the ticket packages were going and people were buying booths and wanting to be a part of it. And, the people who came in 2019, it was kind of a thrown together last minute kind of thing. How that kind of came about was somebody went to what they call Fantasy Con or Sports Con down in Dallas. It was the Tony Romo thing. And they said it was just a big ripoff. It was really expensive to get a booth, and they did very little fantasy. It was more about getting autographs of the players, and people really didn't come there for fantasy purposes. And somebody said, man, I wish somebody could just put our own fantasy football expo together and just do it on our own. And we just, keep the price down, make it reasonable, for us folks that aren't doing this full time. And I'm like, all right, I'll do that. Let me slap something together. And so I did. And, it was a nice time. I think we might have had like 25 or 30 booths, but we didn't get a lot of attendees. It was more just kind of people who just wanted to try it. But the best thing about it, and you brought this up, Steve, was the get together Saturday night. It was just an unplanned, everybody met at BW3 kind of thing. But we had like 70 people packed in the back of a BW3.
Oh my God.
And like you said, it's Marcus Grant, Brad Evans, Mike Clay, and then all of us, I call us RB2s, that we could talk to what we would classify as basically our idols, the people we've looked up to and wanted to get, to know and be a part of and understand their world and how do they do it. And the great thing about it was, all of those people, Brad, Mike, Andy, you name them, all zero ego, zero. Like, they are more than happy to talk to you, listen to you. They're going to give their take if you're talking real fantasy football, but they're also really excited about mentoring folks like us that want to do more, want to be a bigger part of this industry. How do you do that? What's the best way to do podcasts? And answering those questions. And the cool thing was, I've heard from so many people that at our level, I call it, that sent me notes later and said, Bob, you know what was awesome is now I can ask a Mike Clay or an Andy Behrens or a Brad Evans to come on my podcast, and I'm not scared of it. I'm not, I'm not worried about them saying no because they won't. And they're very helpful, and they came, I would never have asked that in the past, never even thought about asking one of those guys to come on a podcast because they're too big of a deal. They're too big, ego wise. They'll never come on my little podcast. And guess what? They did. And that's what's awesome. And I deeply appreciate everything that those guys have done for this industry. But that keeping the ego in check and helping all of us be a part of this, knowing that you're right, maybe we only have 50 people listen, maybe we have 20 people, maybe whatever. It doesn't matter because they're helping us in doing that, and they're taking their time out of their busy schedules to be a part of it. And I think that's what's really important. And you'll see that when you come to this and how everybody reacts to that. So it's super cool.
No, definitely. Like I said, I'm thrilled about it. I think it's a fantastic idea to bring everyone, who loves to just talk fantasy all in one spot, whether you're big or small. It's a great situation. I'm excited to be going this year. So
cool. Yep. Yeah, me too.
All right, so let's get over to the news for the day, guys. As you probably, by the time you guys actually listen to this, unless you're listening live, the NFL schedule will be out in the next 35 minutes. So that's going to be interesting here. We probably won't talk much about that because, it's just a lot to talk about in fantasy. So it's a whole nother podcast or two to talk about. So
Right.
We're not going into that too detailed. So just to listen to it. If you guys find anything cool about it, hit us up on Twitter and we'll talk about it for sure. Next thing here, there's a couple small things. One signing and one rumor. Tim Tebow back in the league again, guys. He joins the Jacksonville Jaguars. This seems like a pretty easy question, but maybe not. Do you guys believe Tim Tebow is just for show? And that's it?
Show and pony, baby. Show
and pony. Show and pony. Okay.
He played with Urban Meyer. I'm sure there's a relationship there. Tim tried to play baseball. I mean, he's a great person. And, who knows? Maybe Urban was like, hey, you want to try playing tight end? I think he wants to be a part of this world, and good for him. I have no ill feelings against this guy. I have no problems. I've heard crap like, how does Tim Tebow get in and Kaepernick doesn't? Blah. I'm like, God, how did this get turned into a Kaepernick issue? I have no idea. It's like, let it go, people. If he wants to play and Urban's going to give him a shot, let him play.
It's like his son.
Is Tyler Crawford still their tight end or something like that? Can you name their tight end?
Who is Chris Martinez? I think that's the starting tight end right now. I mean,
so he can't be any worse. And if he sells some jerseys and brings some more fans because they got Trevor Lawrence and ETN and all these guys, who cares? Let him play. Is he fantasy worthy? No, probably not.
It could be a publicity stunt, and it also could be like maybe he could keep a watchful eye in that locker room, make sure they're on the right path, doing the right thing. Like he's basically like a coach.
He's great in Florida.
Yeah. Fantasy wise, no, I'm not excited about it at all. Is it a cool story? Sure. Why not? I don't care.
Yeah, it's relevant. It's not relevant, guys. I mean, would I be surprised if he puts up like 600 yards and 6 touchdowns before the end of the season? Probably not, but I just probably won't happen. So I just feel like we bring it up real quick and just mention Tim Tebow because it's Tim Tebow. So
yeah.
And then last but not least, we haven't really had a chance to talk about the Aaron Rodgers situation. Obviously, everyone knows, he's not happy with Green Bay. But real quick, guys, do you guys think he's done in Green Bay, or is it just, a child being upset and he'll be fine by the season?
I don't think he's going anywhere because I don't think Green Bay is going to let him go anywhere. Are they going to fire the GM if he, they might. I mean, you can look at it two ways. One, Green Bay sells out every game and will for the rest of our lifetime. The season ticket waiting list, my buddy's been on it. I think it's year 13. And I think he might be in the top 5,000 now. So
God damn.
It doesn't matter. So you can look at it from a business standpoint and go, he leaves, we still sell it out. We still sell tickets. Yeah, people are going to be pissed, but they're still buying tickets because they're not going to give up their season tickets because they don't want to get off the list. They have to keep him happy. I don't see him going anywhere. I just don't. I think it's a great story. I think it's a great, media hype, but they're going to give him whatever he wants. And if they got to fire GM, they fire the GM. The owners of the team, he can control it. Now, I guess, again, they can put their foot down, but I don't think this GM, it's not like this is Ron Wolf they're firing. This is a guy that just came in over the last year or two. He hasn't done much.
Make questionable picks for sure.
Questionable picks in the draft. They've yet to get him a solid wide receiver too. If I'm Rodgers, I'm pissed too. Like, hey, give me some talent. And they haven't done it.
Yeah.
But he still almost made the NFC Championship game. Basically got some bad calls, but we'll regress. But they could have easily been in the Super Bowl and maybe won it. So you're that close. Yeah, I think you let Aaron Rodgers stay.
I mean, at this point, unless he maybe goes to Denver, his situation, this is the best chance for him to win.
I just don't understand it. Why would he go? Like, just like Bob said, like he was in the pinnacle to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row, and he knows the team's there, but like he's just basically being spiteful, saying like, "Hey, listen to me, or I'm out." But like, hey, he'll push him to the edge, but we'll see what's gonna happen. I don't think he's leaving, but I wouldn't leave if I was in his situation at all.
No,
I don't think Green Bay lets him leave. No.
He's either retiring or he's staying in Green Bay, and I don't think he could probably retire, but I feel like he still wants to play. I feel like he needs to get
again, like Jim says, he's been this close for 2 years. I think he wants one more shot at getting in and out of the ring, and they've got the talent that around them.
This is the team right now.
Like you said, the only one really in their way is Tampa, and can Tampa do it again? I don't know. Maybe.
Never go against Tom Brady, unfortunately.
No, exactly. Yeah, I never bet against you, but
I'm in the NFC East at this point now, so that's all I care about. It'd be better if he was just out of football in general, but we're a couple of years, maybe a decade away from that, so we'll happen to see. So let's get into our main topic today, guys. And if you guys didn't see what the show note was, we're talking some veterans that were positively and negatively affected from the NFL draft, players that might have, snagging an extra player that helped them, or maybe didn't help them in that sense, or maybe nothing happened at all, and they didn't. Now they're still the full-time starter on the team. So there's a bunch to talk about. About what do we got? 2, 4, 6, 8, about 12 guys. We're gonna go over real quick here now. And Jibs, we're gonna start with you on this one, my friend. And we're gonna start with your very first guy here, and a running back, Mike Davis. So you have him as a positive. Tell us why.
He's a huge winner, of course. I would have bet huge sums of my own money that the Falcons would have gotten a player in the draft. And fast forwarding through the draft, you saw that a bunch of NFL GMs basically thought this running back draft class, wasn't that great after the first couple picks. So they kind of just let him go and go and go. And the beneficiary is Mike Davis. He has him and a bunch of undrafted free agents. The Falcons are probably saying like, "Oh, it's a free for all," but hey, if I'm going to bet my money again, and I think I'll be right on this time, like they're probably going to lean on Mike Davis to start the season. And you would think like Todd Gurley and had a 53% rush share. Freeman had a 58% rush share in 2019. Coleman 55% rush share, and Freeman and Coleman had a 51 and 40% share. So I know he's going to get 50% of the rushing share. If the people behind him aren't good, hey, so what? He may get more work, but I think he could definitely get a 1,000 all-purpose yards and definitely have a great season in that explosive offense.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation. He's got himself basically thrown into the starting lineup for no reason. Bob, how do you feel about Mike Davis in Atlanta?
So in the consistency guide, one of the articles in sections in the back, kind of for draft prep, is what I call the undervalued based on consistency. And Mike Davis is the top guy on my list in that article. Last year when McCaffrey wasn't playing, which was most of the year, outside of the games where he came in and he actually did play, he was 67% consistent for Carolina. And Carolina wasn't that great of an offense with Teddy Bridgewater running the show. So if he can be that consistent in a basically non-offensive kind of team, think what he can do in Atlanta, where now everybody has multiple people that have to pay attention. Kyle Pitts, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage. They can't focus on a running back. And really, let's be honest, that's pretty much what they had in Carolina. I mean, Teddy didn't do enough to keep even DJ Moore consistent. So I feel like this is a good value. And right now his ADP is like RB 38. I'm like, nope, I got him like 24th. So he's a solid RB2. And if you can get him in like round 7 or 8, man, I'm draft him as your RB3 or RB4. I mean, you could be starting him as a flex every week without question.
Yeah, the best thing about him, he does have that dual threat ability, something that you did see in Carolina. So, again, I think he has that RB2 potential. Again, there's concerns how the end of the season kind of went there. If was it the Teddy Bridgewater kind of his injury lingering, it kind of forced them to kind of run the ball more, kind of made Mike Davis less consistent. It's possible, but you're going to get a guy who's going to at least see what I have projected as is probably at least 200 carries, unless somebody in that undrafted or players who are already currently there who really haven't performed to that standard somehow step up, which I can't see happening. So you're getting a great value in a guy like Mike Davis right now, who's just going to be probably rising up boards as we get closer to camp, as they call him the RB1 on the team. So
yeah.
Over to the next guy, and I think, Bob, we're going to go with one of your guys here. So we're going to start with, who did we have for you here? We're going to go with your wide receiver, Darnell Mooney. I believe he was one of your guys as you had benefited from the draft here. So tell us why.
Darnell Mooney pretty much is not even on anybody's radar. But what people have to remember is that he's the other wide receiver outside of Allen Robinson in Chicago. Now, in last year, not real consistent, didn't do a ton of stuff. But the reason why was because they didn't have a quarterback that could throw the ball deep. Now they get Justin Fields in the draft. And I feel like this could be one of those late sleepers, especially best ball sleepers, where you could grab him. He's pretty much free. I mean, you might even be able to get him, you might not even have to draft him and get him in free agency. But again, a best ball or anything like that, or a deep league where you can stash him as your wide receiver 6, 7. I think there's some great value here. Fields will get him the ball deep. He's got speed to burn. People are, they're going to be double teaming the crap out of Allen Robinson. Not that it ever stopped him. So I can see him, being a really nice value. And so I think he's benefiting greatly from the draft when it comes to the fact that Justin Fields is in town.
Yeah, Justin Fields definitely makes a major difference. Even Andy Dalton. People are hating on Andy Dalton, but he could definitely make a difference too. But Jibbs, do you like Mooney now as a possible late round sleeper now in drafts?
I do, especially with the speculation with the Bears trying to trade Anthony Miller. That would definitely give him a more increased boost in the offense. So Darnell Mooney showed some flashes last year. And, he has plenty of room to grow. He's just second year, so I like that pick a lot, Bob.
Yeah, I also like it too, Bob. I'm very high on Mooney. I've had him everywhere possible in all my dynasty leagues. But in terms of overall this coming season here, you have to think, what did Andy Dalton do good last year at the Cowboys? The deep ball with Michael Gallup. He actually made Michael Gallup more fantasy relevant as the end of the season went on, and that's kind of what Mooney can do, kind of get downfield a little bit there. And then you think of Justin Fields, a guy who had probably one of the better deep ball throw passers in the game coming into this draft here. So I think Mooney is in line for a bigger workload this coming season here. I don't think the tight ends will be as relevant besides obviously Cole Kmet. I don't think Jimmy Graham's going to be the second leading target player on the team, which I think he was this past season here. So I think Mooney was. So he's going to take a major step down. And then Mooney, I think, is going to take that next step up here in this coming season with either Andy Dalton or Justin Fields on the field. They automatically upgrades over guys like Mitch and Nick Foles. So that's another great one right there.
Yeah.
And going over to my first one here on the board, who did I go with here? I went with James Conner and Chase Edmonds. Pretty obvious one here, guys. Obviously, we liked this tandem right before the draft. It's like, all right, this could work here. And we're like, well, Travis Etienne could go there. Maybe they find someone who falls in the second round they really want to grab. Well, that didn't happen. They didn't really draft her. They went Rondale Moore, which, again, affects him slightly, but not to that extent we would expect like a Travis Etienne will. So, again, you have to think about it. You're getting Chase Edmonds in the 6th round, 7th round in a lot of drafts. You're getting James Conner in the probably 9th or 10th round, probably currently right now. And I think either or of these guys you can get on your team, you'll be real excited about. Probably Chase Edmonds more in that PPR role. I don't think his role changes as much. He might see more carries, of course, because he's going to be splitting time with James Conner. So he's going to have a better role. He's probably going to be a pretty solid RB3. I think both these guys actually can be a pretty solid RB3 with maybe one of them sneaking into that RB2 situation, like I think James Conner, honestly, because he's going to see more of that 1 and 2 workload, which he also can work on third downs as well if necessary. James Conner, he's injury prone. We've seen it over the last 3 seasons now, but if he can just not see as many carries early on, and maybe that's the key factor for him, splitting time with Chase Edmonds, I think both these guys could have very good success while teams are trying to fight for wide receiver sets consistently in Arizona. So how do you guys feel about these two duos here?
I like their values that are represented in the drafts upcoming.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, neither one of them I think should be drafted as your RB2, but if you can get one or both as your RB3 that you can do flex, like you said, if you're PPR, probably focus more on Edmonds. Non-PPR, focus more on Conner. Conner's health is he's never stayed healthy all year. So, Edmonds, I think, could get more work. So if I had to pick, I'm going to lean towards Edmonds too, just because he usually stays healthier. Conner's might come out like a fireball first 4 or 5 games, but then there's this twinge here and that twinge there. Next thing you know, he's missing a game or 2 or 3, and it just becomes a hot mess. That's why I would stay away from Conner, just because of that. I think Edmonds would be a better pick. And again, as your wide receiver or running back 3, filling in as your flex, good backup when you need them. I think that's a solid pick. But definitely don't reach for that. Either one is an RB2, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely going with Edmonds.
They're RB3s all day. I won't even think about it. They're going to work great together, but by themselves, I'm not going to see enough workload for you to really trust them as an RB.
If you're an RB gang or just looking at those guys.
Oh, perfect. They're perfect. They're perfect for the zero RB strategy. If you guys prefer that strategy, I think they're great guys to go grab late and grab those wide receivers and your quarterback and tight end, whatever it may be early. Love that, Jibs. All right, so we're going back to you here, Jibs, and your second one was a wide receiver yourself, fan favorite of yours ever since he's been in the league, it seems like at this point here. But it's Mecole Hardman of the Kansas City Chiefs here. Why Mecole Hardman of all people?
Like you just stated before, I'm just gonna keep stating that he's gonna be a winner until he produces for fantasy. But Sammy Watkins did leave town, and I know it's not that many targets that are gonna be dispersed, because you still have 2 fantasy stalwarts, being Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill being on that offense. But it does make Mecole Hardman go into that wide receiver 2 role. I know they drafted Cornell Powell in the 5th round or so, but maybe this is my hypothetically thinking, maybe he'll be that nice return guy, and that could kind of make Mecole Hardman actually be a consistent offensive guy and be able to produce more snaps and whatnot. So I think that alone by itself, I think that'll be different for him this year, not having Sammy Watkins on the team. I know they still kept DeMarcus Robinson, and they can make a good trio, but I'm quite optimistic for Mecole Hardman. I'm not saying he's going to be a rock star, wide receiver 2, 3 good guy, but I'm saying he could provide value to your team late in drafts this season.
All right, I like your point on that for sure. I don't hate it. I know why you love him. I mean, though it's not Madden though.
No. It's not even Madden. I'm saying Patrick Mahomes is Madden, but
Patrick Mahomes is Madden, yes. So that could be a key factor for sure. Bob, how about you? Are you a fan of the Mecole Hardman train?
Like you said, my stuff's about consistency, guys. And Mecole let me down because 2 years ago, he was pretty close to 50%. Sammy Watkins got hurt. He had a lot of potential to put up some big numbers last year and dropped down to 36% in consistency. And amazingly enough, he was almost exactly the same in total points. So that kind of says to me that Mahomes is losing faith in him. and and Robinson's not much better. If I'm going to draft Hardman, I'd be fine with him in a best ball league if I could get him, late. I feel like his name, the team he plays for, puts his ADP a little bit too high based on what we got out of him last year. Maybe with Watkins completely gone, that'll change. But I felt like he should have at least stayed the same last year consistency-wise than he did the year before, and he didn't. And with Watkins missing most of the year anyway with injuries, I just feel like it wasn't – I don't know if I'm ready to make that commitment this year. And I have in the past. I was a fan. But last year kind of burned me consistency-wise. So as they say on Shark Tank, and for that, I'm out.
I'm not hopping off the train. Bob, I'm not hopping off the train.
Jibs, I know you've always been a big fan, and I get the like for it, and I don't disagree with you whatsoever, because maybe it's year 3. This is where they find a way to work him in this offense that he's not just, and I believe he's just the Tyreek Hill backup in case Tyreek Hill goes down, and then Mecole Hardman fills that role. I think he fills it really well, and he'd be relevant that way. And you saw that at times when Tyreek Hill went down 2 years ago, but I don't believe he can be a full-time starter consistently enough for me to want to go out and get him. But again, he could end up taking that next level. I mean, I think he's just going to get worked in with Robinson, and apparently Brian Pringle is a guy they really like there, and obviously Powell they drafted in the 5th round. Again, these guys are probably going to see at best, if one of them does break out, 80 targets maybe, which isn't horrible. It's maybe an wide receiver 3 status, which isn't bad whatsoever. But to me, it's the inconsistency, like Bob mentioned, that I can't seem to like him. I mean, he's just either he has a really great game or he's just very quiet and just very involved in the return game, which they seem to love him in that role here. So I don't hate it, Jibs, but I can't be a fan of it, unfortunately.
I didn't say you had to be a fan, but you asked me whose stock was helped during the draft, and his stock was helped.
That's true. They didn't really get much. They didn't go after anybody to try to really replace him, so I get that.
That's true. I mean, if they took that 2nd round talent on somebody, you might be talking a different story here. So, yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense, Jibs. All right. Who do we have next? Bob, we're back to you, my friend. And I know Jibs is going to love this one. Well, maybe. He's at least the team he's going to like, at least. And it's Jalen Hurts here, the quarterback.
Of course.
Of course. I mean, I don't know if you're a big Hurts fan. Honestly, I don't know that, to be honest. We don't really talk about it to that extent. But, Bob, it seemed a pretty clear situation where Jalen Hurts is the guy that's rising. But tell us why you like him as a riser.
Well, I mean, obviously getting, Devontae Smith, right? No. Yes. That's my brain dead. Yes. Devontae Smith. Yeah. They needed so much help at wide receiver. That's been their thing. Hurts was basically throwing into a hot mess last year. Rieger never really did much and then was injured. Djax didn't do anything. Now he's gone. The Ertz Goddard situation was marginal at best. So they needed a star, and they went out and got Devontae Smith, who of course played with Hurts. So they got, he got his guy. That's got to help him a lot. Now, be that as it may, don't put him in the top 12 yet, folks. He's not ready for that. I saw somebody do a, wild prediction, and they had Hurts in the top 5, and I'm like, oof, somebody's smoking a lot of weed. But I think that, again, the draft helped him tremendously, and I think he certainly has room for improvement, and the team has room for improvement. But from that standpoint, I really feel like he got helped a lot in the draft, and Smith was certainly a part of that.
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. Jibs, though, Jalen Hurts, are you on the train as well? Do you believe that he improved from this draft?
No, I think he gets improvement. Like, he has 2 more offensive weapons, of course, with Gainwell and the Heisman winning trophy wide receiver. So I think, along with Jalen Reagor, and you still have Miles Sanders with the offensive line getting healthy, I think he'll have a fresh leaf, and you could grade him instead of him just running wildly behind a raggedy offensive line, running for his life and making passes happen. So I know he had his improvement his accuracy, but like, you get a guy like Devontae Smith, I think it kind of makes it look better, and they could go along.
Yeah, and like I said, Bob, I like this one a lot too because again, I'm not at that point either to put him in my top 10 right now. I mean, he has passing issues that hopefully is worked on this offseason here, and again, defenses are going to look at the film they have on him and prepare to beat this guy next year. So he's got to be even better than he was last year when he was running around like crazy. But you get a guy like Devontae Smith in there, a guy who can kind of just, you give him the ball in a short distance and he can do things with the ball in his hands. And I think that's what Jalen Hurts needs, a safety blanket outside of the tight end situation. When he rolls out there, Devontae Smith's coming across the field and boom, you get him right there. He'll get you that 5 or 10 yards you need to get that first down. I think they need that type of wide receiver to kind of come in here and help him complete more of the shorter passes so he's not forced to throw long consistently. And then you bring in more running back help, in case he needs it in the backfield there, that kind of can help him. Like, hey, we got to watch out. These running backs will dual threats. We don't know what's going to happen with Jalen Hurts back there. And I think that's going to help him overall. And I think, could he be a top 10? It's absolutely possible if he keeps up that rushing floor. I'm not ready for that yet, but I love that they're heading in the right direction this time with a guy like Jalen Hurts and putting the talent around him.
Yep.
All right. And then my final guy here is Myles Gaskins. Obviously, I'm a big Dolphins fan, so I'm not being biased whatsoever, guys. But Myles Gaskins last year was a bit of a surprise to a lot of people out there. I mean, even to me, and I'm a big Dolphins fan, and I followed the Dolphins very hardcore. I didn't expect Gaskins to actually see the starting role. But, everyone assumed that Najee Harris to Miami, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams in the second round to Miami. None of that happened. They didn't even draft a running back until the 7th round. And I think that puts a vote of confidence in Myles Gaskins, at least for this season here now. I mean, he was great when he was on the field here. I mean, he was a top RB2 in fantasy last year when he got the chance to. He was a dual threat ability to his game here. He caught surprisingly a decent amount of catches last year that many people did not expect out of him to do that because he was more of that 2-down kind of running back when he was coming in from the draft here. But he showed his involvement in the passing game very well. And again, there's not much competition. You saw last year when they had people kind of filtering in with Ahmed, Washington, and then Gaskins came back and he took the full workload over again. Now, there's a slight concern that Malcolm Brown is going to get in the way of that a little bit there. I do believe they brought in Malcolm Brown, who they signed very quickly out of free agency, to have some kind of role on this team, kind of something that we saw last year with Akers and Henderson, with Brown having that situation there. But I think Gaskins, he's going to see the starting workload, and he's probably, as long as he can stay healthy, which he has most of his career, so I don't expect the injury to be a major concern. With no other running back coming in, especially highly drafted running back coming in, I expect Gaskins to kind of be a really solid RB2 for you next year. And if you could do that 0 RB approach and you can get him in like the 6th round, I'd be really happy as my RB1 in a 0 RB kind of strategy. So how do you guys feel about Myles Gaskins?
He's a fantastic pick.
Huh?
I think he's a fantastic pick, but who else is on the in your backfield?
Malcolm Brown and Salvan Ahmed.
Yeah, he's a fantastic pick.
Any one of those guys, though, I wouldn't be surprised if they got the starting role at some point. Just saying. But Gaskins, I think, can do it.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll throw out some spoiler alerts from the consistency guide because not everybody follows this kind of information. But Myles Gaskin played in 10 games last year, and he was consistent so he earned a clutch game, which means he earned over 11 fantasy points in a PPR format in 8 out of the 10. So he was 80% consistent. That would have ranked him 7th amongst all running backs. He was 25th in total points. He was almost top, like you said, almost RB2 in total points. Again, remember, he missed 6 games. So you annualize that out, this kid is a hell of a value. And the fact that they didn't go get somebody else, other than Malcolm Brown, who's been a lifetime backup at this point, I mean, they needed, because of the health, because of the injuries, you got to have a solid backup. Ahmed was not that. He did okay when he filled in, but then he was hurt. So this kid, oh my gosh, I can't wait to draft this guy in every draft I can get, because again, I might be able to get him as an RB3 because there's not a lot of love for him. In fact, let me Oops, I had my numbers up. His ADP, okay, it's sitting around. It's right now sitting right at RB24. But that was right after the draft, so he may fall a little bit because again, Najee Harris will move up, the Mike Davis will move up. So some of these guys, but he's just on that fringe. So you could, again, if you went like running back in your first 3 rounds, you could easily go, Aaron Jones and trying to think of a good, actually I think a draft I did, I went, let me think, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, and I think I took Gaskin in the 3rd round. I think. Yeah. So
No hate it.
It's a little early, but I thought if he could be my flex and I could go get wide receivers all day, every day later, I'm perfectly fine with that. If he puts up 80% consistency and can play in 12 or 13 games, well, I guess we have 17 now. So now you got to add an extra game. So let's hope he gets in 13 or 14. But still, if he could get that and provide that kind of value, I can get wide receivers all day to fill other gaps. So, like I said, I think this kid has the potential. He showed his consistency. The coaching staff seems to have faith in him. I think this kid's a great fantasy value right now.
Right, and they also got a guard in the draft as well, so they're making offensive line stronger than it was even last year, and his credibility. He was first last year in yards per reception. I mean, he can do it in both the receiving and pass and the rushing game, so that's why I like him.
And I'll add in some more just love here. My man crush here on Myles Gaskin. Let's also look at the rest of the Dolphins. So they added Jalen Waddle. So now they've got, last year when Gaskin was playing, Parker was wide receiver, but Preston Williams got hurt, and they really didn't have a solid number 2, which made Tua struggle. So now Tua is going to have Parker. He's got Fuller. Preston Williams will come back, and they added Jalen Waddle. So now you've got all kinds of weapons on the Air Force here scenario of the air game. Well, now teams can't focus on stopping Myles Gaskin, so now he can run free. There's going to be more gaps. There's going to be more openings, more balls out of the backfield because they'll be spreading the deep. I mean, there's just so many things to like about this situation. It's good to be a Dolphins fan.
Yeah. You're speaking words of love to me right now, man. I'm loving it, but maybe we should quiet on Myles Gaskins a little bit because he's going to start rising up ADPs. All right, guys. Well, with the positives come some negatives, of course, here. And we got to talk to some guys that kind of fallen down after the draft here. So, Jibs, we're back up to you, my friend, here. We'll start with your wide receiver here in Hollywood Brown. Obviously there's a big reason why they took a wide receiver in the 1st round, but tell us, Hollywood Brown, why is he falling for you?
Basically, remember that time last year when he was having a fit because he wasn't getting enough targets, and now he has 2 new wide receivers and Rashad Bateman and Tylan Wallace on top of Duvernay and Sammy Watkins to deal with. So for me, I don't think Marquise Brown could be a 1,000-yard wide receiver. I know the Ravens want to get the offensive stabilized, and that could lead to more passing attempts and targets. But still, Marquise Brown had 100 targets last year, caught 58 of them. That's a 58% catch rate. Marquise Brown's been living on touchdowns the last 2 years. If he doesn't get those touchdowns, the 8 or 7 touchdowns this year, he's not a wide receiver 3. So I think on top of that, with some improvements like a Rashad Bateman, who is a guy who's kind of that more X receiver who's going to get the catches in the tight windows, not be much of a deep ball receiver. I think he'll be more utilized more for Lamar Jackson. And I know he could be the target leader, but I just don't know if he's going to get better at catching the ball. So I just not a big fan of him in this situation. So I think his stock went down. Yeah,
I'm kind of on board with you as well, Jibs. But Bob, are you off the Hollywood Brown train as well?
Well, first off, I was really on the Hollywood Brown train. Here's the interesting thing. Until the last 6 weeks, Marquise Brown was 3 for 10 in consistency. And then him and Lamar went off. And it was mostly because they were playing garbage defenses for the last 6 games. I mean, that was on the schedule from the beginning. If you could at least make the playoffs with Lamar Jackson or Marquise Brown on your team, you were going to be in for a fun time if you could make it. The key was, could you make it based on how poorly they played to that point? Just based on that alone, I just, like you said, I'm just pretty afraid of that. I mean, I'm all in on J.K. Dobbins in that team, and even Lamar, I think, will come back. And again, as a team, they did the right thing. Doesn't help Marquise Brown, but then again, Marquise Brown really shouldn't have been a top wide receiver 3, top 36 anyway. Again, Marquise Brown is kind of like Hardman or Marcus Robinson. If you're playing best ball, that's where he can be very beneficial, because he'll have 6 games where he'll get 2 touchdowns at 50 yards each or something like that, because they'll get caught off guard and be focused too much on Lamar and he burns somebody deep. But it's the other 12 games that's not going to help you much.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, the Ravens are 32nd in passing the last 2 seasons here. I don't care if they added a wide receiver. I mean, that obviously makes the situation even worse. The targets are going to go around even more than he already has the last couple of seasons here now. And again, he's going to have a game or two where he goes off. Yeah, he's just going to happen, but it's not going to be consistent enough. And again, Bateman is a guy who's very special. And I think he could really make it work in this offense with Lamar, and it just takes away from Hollywood Brown. And again, I don't want nothing to do with Hollywood Brown now. He's going to be falling in drafts. Yeah, maybe people say, oh, he's going to be a steal now. And if you want to take him and be a steal, you go right ahead. So I'll wait for someone else. So I'm not a fan either. So, all right, over to the next player here. Bob, we're going to start with your first person here, and it's James Robinson here. Obviously a heart-crushing story where everyone loved James Robinson. People saying, sell, do we sell? We have no idea. And what do you know? The selling situation was the right move, because obviously you have him as a negative here. So tell us why.
Well, I don't think anybody expected the Jaguars to go out and get Travis Etienne. Robinson did everything he needed to do last year, 93% consistency. I mean, the only person that was ahead of him was a perfect Dalvin Cook last year, who was 100% in 15 out of 15 games. They had a garbage quarterback most of the time. It was either Minshew or people we don't even know and probably will be out of the league in a year or so. And yet still put up those kind of numbers. So he had nowhere to go but down, whether they drafted or not, I guess, but at least could have stayed the same. And, it would have been some good value there. His early ADP before the drafts was, kind of late round 1, mid round 2, which would have been a perfect place to get him. But bringing in ETN, who's going to get a lot of the ball out of the backfield, obviously he's buds with Trevor Lawrence. That's going to hurt. And that's, it's going to be a kick in the nuts. If you got him for Dynasty and thought you were in high hog heaven, now he's going to be a good player, but he's not going to be what he was last year fantasy-wise. So definitely that was a tough hit.
Yeah, it definitely is, unfortunately. And you just can't expect him to see 243 carries. I think that's what he had last year, something like that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, Travis Etienne's going to eat into that. I mean, maybe he'll have some decent games here and there, but maybe the touchdowns will save him. But it's unfortunate he's going down, guys. I mean, I think at best, if Etienne gets hurt, he's going to be an RB3 some weeks, kind of like a Latavius Murray kind of role for him that he can kind of have in Jacksonville and be relevant at times. Or and if you were to see the starting lineup, he'll be a god. So again, I liked him. I liked him last year, but obviously the Jaguars want to do something different and they want to be faster, and Travis Etienne offers that for them.
Didn't the Jaguars miss out on a pick that kind of forced them to pick Travis? They wanted like a specific player, and I think someone picked the player right before him.
Yeah.
I forget who. I heard that too. I forget who though. But I don't remember when that happened.
Quite unfortunate for them. But yeah, I feel bad for James Robinson just because I don't even think they really needed to get a guy of his ilk. And I think James Robinson kind of fit what they needed, and they could have got a veteran player like Carlos Hyde, and they could have ran the 1-2 punch. They didn't really need to add a third piece in that backfield at all. Yeah. So it's embarrassment of riches.
The only thing we can hope for from a fantasy standpoint is that Robinson falls far enough in drafts that he becomes a value as maybe, again, maybe he's a 5th round pick and you go and get him as your, RB3. Now he's a value because now I think he'll get enough carries, get enough touchdowns that, he could be worthy of at least an RB2. I mean, and I didn't drop him real far. I mean, I dropped him in my rankings down to 14. Right. So, if I can get him, if he falls far enough, he can be a value. So he's not like he fell off the face of the earth. He's not going to be replaced by ETN. He's just going to be spelled by ETN, which is going to take away pass catching and stuff like that. But I still think he's a first, second down, touchdown guy. Again, he could be valuable if he falls at the right spot in the draft. But if he's still going second round, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get him, even though I have him 14th. It'll depend on what I'm looking at as an RB2 kind of scenario in the drafts. I haven't got to any point where I'm like, ooh, Robinson's the best RB2, so take him. I would probably take a wide receiver 1 at that spot and then hope that maybe he comes back around. If he doesn't, he doesn't. So like I said, let's not give up on Robinson, but let's certainly, we're going to have to see how far he falls, and if everybody gives up on him, he might be actually a good value.
Right, definitely. No, definitely for sure. Real quick before we keep going here, guys, I just want to let you know that if you're doing fantasy championships in 2021, you're going to have to do it 15, 16, and 17 now. There is a week 14 bye week. Miami has a week 14 bye week, so I just looked at that. And so there's no
14-week bye week? Oh, man, way to shit up the playoffs.
Yep. So if you're doing playoffs before you're going to keep the same schedule, you have to move it back, or you're not going to have players in the playoffs. So just wanted to throw that out there real quick because I did see Miami's schedule and I saw week 14 bye. So
I was in leagues last year that had week 13 start of playoffs.
Oh,
so, and you had like Carolina, and was it Kansas City was week 13, or Tampa was
Tampa,
yeah. So I guess you could do it if you want to, go.
Douche.
Is Miami the only team, or how many is there? Or they just?
I haven't. I've been trying to find out. They haven't posted the bye week separately yet. I just know Miami has it. So maybe it's just Miami. Who knows? So if that's the case, guys, maybe you can just have it the same still. Whatever.
Your Myles Gaskins pick. Damn
exactly. All right, let's keep moving on here, guys. Let's see. Jibs, we're going to go back to you because we'll do mine at the end here, see if we have enough time. So we'll go to yours next. Melvin Gordon here. We liked Melvin Gordon coming into the draft. Like, he was a pretty solid RB2 coming into 2021. But Javonte Williams, a trade up for Denver Broncos, kind of ruins that now. But is that the reason why Gordon's fallen for you?
Yeah, and this one's just more of a temperature check on, like, just like you just said, like, the fantasy community was probably like, oh my God, like Melvin Gordon, like they just brought in Mike Boone. Like, he's going to be locked and loaded for some nice production going forward. And then they just drafted Javonte Williams. But sure, like, I still believe Melvin Gordon's going to be a solid value for you. Like, maybe he'll slip a little bit, just like to Bob's point before, and you get him around later. But, like, Melvin Gordon had 215 attempts. That's his third best of his career, and that was 58% of the rush share, and then Lindsey had 32%. So you could see it like maybe like a 55-35 or even something even closer if Javonte Williams is the real deal. But they're still going to have both backs in the game, and I just think Melvin Gordon is going to just fall a little bit, and you could get still a similar value, but kind of hurts him because he has competition that's going to take his job moving forward in the long term.
Absolutely, that's right. Bob, but do you believe that Gordon season kind of just gets split in half now with Williams, or can he still kind of beat out the rookie?
I'm kind of in the same realm as what Jib said, and kind of going with the same scenario as Robinson. If Gordon falls far enough, he's got value. And I was just checking because when I wrote the guide, I wrote basically everything before the draft, had it all ready, and then I just made some tweaks to the stuff based on it. And so obviously I made some, I looked at Gordon one more time. And interesting enough, before the draft, which is when I put this all together, his ADP from Fantasy Football Calculator was already at RB 25. Gordon was. So he already wasn't getting a lot of love from the fantasy world. And this is before the draft. So now it hasn't changed much because, again, Fantasy Calculator accumulates everything this year into the ADP. So you can't separate it like, okay, since the draft, it's been here. As more sites come out with their own ADP, putting the ADPs together of stuff that's happened since the draft, we'll get a better feel. But I feel like Gordon could be, again, kind of like James Robinson, maybe even later. You get him as your RB3. He's going to come out like gangbusters. Let's all remember what happened last year with Aaron Rodgers and when Jordan Love got drafted. Chip on the shoulder. Oh, you're not going to replace me, son. Maybe Gordon comes out. Even if he comes out like wildfire, he could get you, 6-0. And then depending on what Denver's record is, you may want to trade Gordon before it's too late. Because at that point, if Denver's 1-5, they may go, you know what, look, we might as well let Javonte Williams just take the ball the rest of the year and try to trade Gordon off to a contender or somebody like that, which, again, could still give him some value. So, kind of like with Jibs on this, it's kind of like, watch his value. He definitely got hurt a little bit, but is Denver really going to, hand the reins over to Javonte Williams right off the bat? I mean, they got a lot of other more problems at quarterback situation, with Drew Lock, and then they brought in Teddy, and is either one of them going to be sufficient enough? So they may rely on the running game heavily to kind of keep the pressure off those quarterbacks. So Gordon could be a really good value, just like Robinson is if he falls far enough. Could be an RB4, maybe, if he falls. He's fallen.
I mean, if he falls to an RB4, I'll be pretty happy with that, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, I think they use Williams a little bit, but I mean, you have to assume this is going to be definitely Gordon's last year in Denver. I mean, why not just use the hell out of him? Just throw him in there consistently and let Williams be fresh and understand how to play the game next year. But again, you're right. They could end up Denver does some Denver things, and maybe they split the backfield pretty evenly, and then you lose that RB2 value. But if he falls to an RB4 situation for you that you're getting in round 7 or 8, I mean, you really can't go wrong with that here. I mean, Gordon can't stay healthy. We've seen that over his career here. While he has that dual threat ability to his game, it's just health is a major issue, and maybe he gets suspended. I know he's got that thing going on from the drunk driving or something like that.
That could bounce his thing back a little bit more further too.
Yeah, that could definitely 100%. So.
Impactful.
All right, and Bob, let's go to your last one here for the night. You had Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, and obviously the Jamar Chase going to Cincinnati has got to be the big factor for you. So Tell us more about it.
Yeah, I mean, somebody asked me what I thought the biggest kick in the nuts for anybody, from a fantasy standpoint and from the draft, and I told him, I said, I think it's a tie between James Robinson and then the Tyler Boyd T. Higgins because, Boyd and Higgins last year, when Burrow was on the field, they were both over 70 to 75% consistent. And, I had Boyd, I think at 17. I had Higgins at like 22. I was all in on both these guys this year because if Burrow stays healthy, if they would have went and drafted Sewell as their offensive lineman, man, I thought this is going to be a big year for all those guys. But they went after Jamar Chase. And, I guess I kind of get it, again, just like the Jalen Hurts and, all these guys. And then Tua getting Waddle and, everybody getting their buddy to play on their team. All well and good. But now Boyd and Higgins are probably, if not close to, outside now the wide receiver 2 spot because now you're splitting between all 3 of them. And, I guess they could all get 100 targets because let's be honest, if you look, A.J. Green got 100 targets last year in that offense too. You could all 3 get 100 targets. And to be honest with you, they probably will. But is that enough to, it's not going to give one of those guys any specific, over the other. So they're all going to be wide receiver 3s. Maybe Jamar Chase, maybe Boyd, maybe Higgins. Who knows? It could be a game-by-game thing. At the end of the year, they may all be 50% consistent, and they're helping nobody's team. So I'm kind of almost like, I'll draft Joe Burrow now, but I'm not sure I want anything to do with any of these wide receivers. Again, unless they fall far enough where their value now says, hey, I'll take him as a wide receiver 3 because that's fine. Because now at least they're not going to be, overvalued. I'm not having to draft them as my wide receiver 2. In fact, I think I've seen some ADPs where they've got now Chase ahead of these two guys. That might be a little rich for my blood. So I'm more than happy to take Boyd or Higgins after them. And again, if I can get them at, wide receiver 3, either one of those guys, I'd be happy. I'd probably prefer Boyd over Higgins, but I'm not sure I'm ready to put Chase in the wide receiver 2 spot.
Yeah, Bob, me and you get along great. I said the same thing last week. I was like, I'm taking Boyd if they're starting to pick Chase above him.
Yeah, and I've seen it that way. So
I've seen people
rankings where they have Chase in the top 20.
Even some of the big analysts, I listen to some of them, and they're saying the same thing. I get it, but he hasn't played in over a year. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins are people are downgrading they're bad players. Yes, they lost value here because Jamar Chase, but they're really good. And I definitely agree with Higgins. I think Higgins takes the biggest hit of the 3 because of Jamar Chase. I agree. But I think Tyler Boyd is a sneaky guy who I think I'd be willing to draft in almost every one of my leagues, because what was the one thing we said last year about Joe Burrow going into it? Tyler Boyd was going to be great. Joe Burrow loves throwing to his slot. And Tyler Boyd is the veteran on the team. He's going to rely on his veteran, even though he has a connection with Jamar Chase, and maybe he wanted T. Higgins to come join them as well. But I think Tyler Boyd is going to be the sneaky guy of all that 3 there that ends up the highest, and then people will be surprised by the end of the season. And then Higgins and Chase might be overall better wide receivers, but the connection that Boyd has and his role is pretty secure in that slot. I like him there still. But yeah, these guys all just definitely take a hit down after Jamar Chase unfortunately goes there. So,
yeah. But again, while it's a bad thing, it may be a good thing if the value is there.
Yeah. Exactly. A quick update on the schedule, guys. In Week 14, it's also New England, Philly, and the Colts.
Oh.
Bye weeks do not start until Week 6, and Week 7 has 6 bye weeks, has 6 teams on bye, which are, let me just pull that up real quick. They are the following: the Cowboys, the Vikings, the Bills, the Steelers, the Jags, and the Chargers. That's a hell of a bunch of teams right there that will be missed.
So here's my recommendation. Take every single one of your players from all of those teams in Week 7. You'll get 0 points in Week 7, and you'll be solid the rest of the year.
That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing.
Load up like Eckler and Shoo.
Wow.
Somebody said that to me one time. They're like, what do you do when there's, see a lot of, you got a lot of bye weeks, you have half your starting lineup. I'm like, well, I would try to make the rest of the starting lineup all match, because if you can just take 1-0 versus having to worry about it every week, you're really a lot better off.
Oh, for sure. No dropping.
I love that style.
Make the best effort. Oh, sorry, no kickers this week.
Purposely, but it's certainly a concept,
It's definitely a fun situation to take into, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to quickly name off my 2 guys here because we're kind of over time for the day, guys. So the only 2 I had were both Jalen Reagor, Jameson Crowder. Crowder, very obviously, with Elijah Moore being there. So that's a pretty self-explanatory situation there. He's got the dead cap money where he could be cut and save $10 million for the New York Jets this coming season if he makes it through training camp. But again, Elijah Moore is a slot guy who I think will just take over because of money situations at the end of the day. In terms of Jalen Reagor, though, I really want to go through that real quick because people may think, well, Jalen Reagor is going to have a great season. He's coming back after sophomore year. But I think he takes a big hit based off the fact that they did take Devontae Smith. You have to look at what Jalen Hurts needs to do in this offense here and not do too much. Small, short throws, get him open quickly. While Reagor, I think, at times had done that. He goes downfield way too much, and I just feel that Jalen Hurts' deep ball accuracy last year was just wasn't really good. And again, I don't trust him enough as a passer to rely on him to have Jalen Reagor be a reliable week-in-week starter. And I think Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, and the fact that they are bringing in a lot of running backs there. Yes, it's not going to affect Miles Sanders per se, but they're all bringing lots of running backs in this backfield. And I think it's because they want to run the ball in this coming season here. They saw it last year when Nick Sirianni was with the Colts. They ran the ball a lot. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, they had Wilkins, they had Hines in there a lot. They used a lot of people in the backfield there. I think they're going to try to implement that into Philly here. And I think Jalen Reagor, while he may have some boom weeks, great for best ball, I just think he takes a hit because of the way they brought in Devontae Smith and the running backs for this offense and the way they're going to move forward that way.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. So we're going to wrap this thing up here. Bob, this was a ton of fun. You brought a lot of great insight and consistency to this podcast tonight. We really appreciate you jumping on, man.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. Like I said, anytime we can talk whenever you guys want me. So thanks again.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely bring you back on in the future for sure. You were a great guest. So before we let you go again, let everyone know where they can find you out on social media and everything.
All right, so real quick, social media, Twitter at Bob_Lung, website, bigguyfantasysports.com. If you want a PDF version of the 2021 Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. If you want a hard copy, it's on Amazon. They'll ship it to you in a couple of days if you're a Prime member, which is a pretty cool thing. And also, of course, the Fantasy Football Expo coming up this August 14th and 15th. Come out and see our good friends here. Steve and Jibbs are going to be coming in town and just hang out with all the cool fantasy football people because that's what we're going to be doing. It's on the fantasyfootballexpo.com. So, guys, thanks again for having me. Honored to be here and looking forward to seeing you guys again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely, if it's not on here, it's definitely hopefully in person in August. That's for sure. So,
for sure.
As always, guys, thank you for tuning in. Check out the expo for sure. It's going to be a fantastic event. And as always, we'll be off next week, but we'll have 2 shows at the end of May. And you can go check out our website at www.thefantasycoaches.com. If you want to go follow us on Twitter, you can follow us on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy. You can follow me personally at Coach Stephen P. and Jibbs.
I'll take Honcho,
guys. So we appreciate you guys for listening in tonight. Enjoy looking over your team schedule and see who we got to play. And if you're going to a game this year, thank you guys for listening once again. Take care and have a great one.